Welcome, everybody, to If I May, a podcast with me, Kyle, just an average guy, along with three of my average friends, Nick, Dylan, and Brent. Today, we're going to be talking about jumping off piers and how that could lead to you wanting to skydive. Dylan and I have a nice skydiving experience that we shared together that we'll tell you about. After that, that leads us into a little bit of honeymoon talk. What might Nick do on his honeymoon, and where is he going? Will he say? We'll find out. After that, we go into some stories about Brent and Nick getting bitten by ants, and then we get into the tried and true Game of Thrones. So if you're not fully caught up to Season 8, Episode 3, do not stick around for that. Otherwise, right after that, we'll also be touching off on Endgame. So if you have not seen Avengers Endgame, again, skip that part. We'll put links as to the timestamps in the descriptions so you know where to jump to if you want to avoid one of those topics. So with that, hope you enjoyed the episode.
You ever been ziplining before?
I just went this past weekend.
Really?
How was it?
What's that?
Was it?
How was it?
Describe your ziplining experience.
So, I mean, it's super simple. All you do, like, once you get what am I trying to say? Not the belt, but the harness. Once you get the harness figured out, all you're doing is clipping yourself on and taking yourself back off. And then the hard part is like keeping yourself straight if you want to. Some people spin around. But then like another caution is like don't put your hands in front. So like sometimes you get a little disoriented if you're like spinning around underneath the cable. Then you don't know which way is like down the cable and which way is up the cable, because if you can imagine what it would do to your fingers if you put your fingers in between the front of your pulley and the cable. Yeah, you just lose some fingers is all. So you just need to make sure that like
don't put your hands up there.
Because when you come into when you come to the end of your zip line, you need to be facing forward, so that way you can like on the really long ones, you need to be facing forward so you can stop yourself. But I was doing some like super short. It was like a high ropes course / zip line park, and like and on the short ones, like you just need to be facing forward so you can get up onto the platform. It was a pretty cool park. It was like where you start like climbing like cables and different things. Like it's really challenging. You have to go around obstacles and stuff, but then you're like there's a central cable that you're hooked to, so that way if you fall off the obstacle course, you don't like fall all the way down, because you're literally like on the top of telephone poles. Like it's really high up. And then when you get up, like there's platforms that you have a cable or a pulley that's on your hip that you just like unattach and put it over the central cable, and you can zip down to like the next station. So there's like some where you like are climbing, and then some where you zip line to another location. So you're zip lining from like tree to tree, or like they have telephone poles, or like.
See, the most zip lining I've ever done is at like a scout camp. So they have like a 60-foot climbing tower, and they have a zip line coming off of that to like a telephone pole.
You're just hanging on to like a handle, and if you fall, you fall.
No, it's 60 feet above the air. No, so you get like two options or three options. There was the standard climbing harness where they just strap you in and you keep yourself upright. You just hold onto the rope and you're in a sitting position, zipping down. But like, there's no stop. You don't have to stop yourself. It's a straight line, and then it starts going right back up, and then you go back and forth, and like bottom out the bottom. And they have this like slide in staircase. They just slide in to like unclip you and pull you off of it. But you could also choose to do a Superman harness where you're like, strapped in like Superman.
Down.
And you could also decide to do a over the shoulders upside down harness and hang upside down. I've done that one, and it was the roughest one, but also the most fun one, because you can literally just like dive off the top of the tower. Like you're like head first, like literally diving off the top of the tower head first. And like that's pretty surreal.
Fun to me.
Yeah, it was really cool, but then the blood does start getting to your head at the end, especially when you're like going back and forth, like slow down to the stop. Blood definitely starts getting to your head a little bit.
I was down in, I think it was Georgia, and it was like super long zip lines where you're like going like across rivers and like down through the trees and stuff. I'm trying to think of where it was. I don't think it was Georgia, but it was basically like you literally had there was a big spring at the end with the platform on the different zip lines, but there was no way to like slow yourself down coming into the station. So what you had to do is you had to orientate. You had to get yourself facing straight. And what you did, like you use your hand, basically you had really thick rubber or really thick leather gloves, and you'd have to like make sure you're like pushing on the aft part of the
Like you actually had
cable
to
as
break
you're going
yourself.
down, and then you had to grab the cable with the leather gloves to slow yourself down. So
Oh
you had to
boy,
wear like gloves inside of leather gloves,
dude!
and
Like
then to slow yourself down, you had to grab the cable. So like to spin yourself around, you had to push on the cable as it's like going through your hands, and you're flying. Like this cable is booking.
that
So
sounds
like and
terrible.
then
Like that sounds so
and then
sketchy.
and then when you get down to the end, you have to like literally grab the cable with both your hands to slow yourself down. And like by the time you get to the end, like your hands are hot, but you're not like burning yourself because the gloves are so thick. But it was pretty sketchy. It was like really fun because like you actually had like an extension on your pulley, so you had some like room underneath. And what you could do is you could grab that extension and you could push on it when you jump off the platform, and you could flip yourself upside down. So you're like flying through the trees upside down. It was really cool. But then you'd have to like flip yourself up and like reface yourself forwards and then grab the cable before you got to the end. Otherwise, you just like slam into like
Slam
the
into a
station.
tree.
Yeah, no, it wasn't this tree. It was like a big station, and then
Okay.
on the end was like a spring. To like, I mean,
So it would
to make it
cushion
to
you,
where
but not that much.
you wouldn't die, but it would hurt really bad.
That's crazy. I've always wanted to go one of those like zip lining areas where you just like start at the very top of something and you like kind of pick your route down and you just kind of zoop through as you go down. That sounds super cool.
Like, yeah.
I'm just
that'd be cool.
imagining the ones like in ski slopes when there's the rope to tow you up like the bunny hill, having to like grab onto that thing. That's what I'm imagining for your zip lining.
No, it was like you had to hike up to the top, and it was like a significant hike. I remember it was kind of sucky because you're literally like you had to walk up all platforms and then zip line down. But this one I was at this weekend was really cool because you climbed through the adventure, or you climbed through the obstacles to get some like height. Like you had to climb up, so you're like walking on like ropes and stuff, like trying to get up. And then you get up to like platforms, and then you zip down. But you don't zip all the way to the ground. You zip to other obstacles, and then you climb back up through different obstacles. It was tough. It was pretty difficult.
Is that what you were like?
I don't know if it was quite that tough to celebrate in that fashion, but certainly. Brent, have you ever ziplined then?
Yeah, when I worked in Minnesota for a year, one of the things we did was lead high ropes adventure courses. And it was really fun watching and seeing the kids overcome these challenges, which you get to teach them through, and kind of nerve-wracking, the fact that their safety is in your hands. But the thing I really enjoyed about that in particular was I found the more you did the course, you just became really comfortable with it, where once you realize like these safety harnesses and the lanyards that connect you to it are incredibly safe.
You start trusting them. That's how you get in accidents.
Well, compared to like cars or really many things, like the number of accidents in high ropes course are incredibly low. So you get into these and you start to realize like, yeah, I'm doing this. I can just kind of hang here for a little bit off the course, and it's not going to be a big deal because I'm obviously following the proper safety procedure and am hooked on. And of course you always have these double redundancies, make sure you're checked in and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like the high ropes course too don't give you that like opportunity to fall very far. Whereas like if you're climbing a mountain and like putting in your own hardware, you can fall down like almost 100 feet or 50 feet. I've never done it, but you can fall a significant time because you fall to your hardware and then you fall that distance again, right? So it's like that's where people get hurt more.
Yeah, a lot of what happens with these rope courses, and that's one of the things that they trained us on when we were teaching, is like it's all perceived risk. The risk is actually very minimal, but because you're 20, 30, 40 feet above the ground,
humans aren't naturally
you feel like you're going to fall off. Well, the best part about the course is you get through the course and have different obstacles, probably similar to what Dylan had. The best part was always the zip line. And by the time the end of the year rolled around, probably done it 40, 50 times, the same zip line. So it was, closing your eyes, going backwards, jumping off. And my favorite part of the zip line is always that initial drop. Like when you first step off.
Yeah, before the cords taunt.
You fall. because that's the part where it's just that feels so real. And then the obviously the zip is pretty fun too, but definitely the bigger that initial drop is, I think the more thrilling the zip line is for me.
So Nick, have you done zip line? And then off of that, because of Brent's point there, would you / anybody else ever go bungee jumping? Because it sounds like that's the kind of thing Brent would want to do.
So the reason I asked the question in the first place, I actually didn't expect nearly that level of answers. I'm quite impressed with all of you. That being said, the reason I'm asking is I'm just starting to plan honeymoon type activities, and there is a laundry list of things we could talk about today. That's one of them. And I've not.
Wait, Nick, if I may, real quick, where were you going to your honeymoon again? I know, I'm just kidding. I know you're not saying.
For making me be a dick. At any rate, and apparently you can possibly zip line while there. So if that narrows it down at all. No, the zip lining is one adventure that's an option. We can talk about the others. And as far as zip lining is concerned, I've been on a high ropes course. By some definition, maybe I've zip lined, but my thought kind of more went to what's the weight limit? Because I happen to be a heavier man. I'm sure I can do it and it wouldn't be a huge deal, but doing that and then zip line experience, I was curious how much fun it actually is. And I think it's one of those things that it's as fun as you make it. You got bored relatively quickly, inching your way out and being as safe as possible. It's more fun if you close your eyes and do some crazy nonsense. But as I'm planning this, I'm thinking back to a South Park episode, and I'm not sure if any of you remember it, where the kids of South Park go zip lining, and it's ramped up to be this awesome shredding the gnar type thing where they're going crazy, and they go up there, they get in a van with 10 of their best friends, and then they all get on all their safety gear, and they're like, well, what the hell's this? And then they go do the zip line, and it shows them just like crawling along. And certainly if you don't, jump off or give yourself some kind of boost, like I'm sure you'll still get going pretty quick depending on the type of zip line, but you could also, keep it pretty leisurely. Like this is a family friendly activity at the end of the day for most, I would assume. So
the biggest
I was just curious.
I would say from the scout camp, I know the biggest thing they were telling everybody is like commit. Because if you don't commit, that's when people like try to freak out and try to like catch themselves in the lip, and that's when you get hurt. So like the biggest thing you can do is actually just commit to getting off that platform.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of that mentality, just with respect to cliff jumping and other activities that I used to do in college. And I think I was on a family vacation with my fiance and her family, their family vacation rather, and we were in Florida, and there was an event where something to the effect of like polar plunge at the pier. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, finally. I've been looking at these giant piers in Florida, and I've been wanting to jump off of one.
Polar in the Florida?
It's their version of a polar plunge, which means just going in the water in December for them, which for us is, basically summer in any of our lakes. So I think Brent and I made a point of going in the Gulf every single day we were there. So it wasn't a polar plunge for us at all. Even when it was raining, like one day, like all day, we still went into the Gulf just to say that we went in every single day. But polar plunge at the pier. So I'm like pumped up, and I'm thinking like, oh gosh, this is going to be fun. I've not cliff jumped for a while, and that's basically a cliff. And then my more safety conscious family members or family members to be on that side were quick to point out that it's not safe to jump off of the piers, and there are large waves coming in, and the supports for the piers go out in these different directions. And I'm sitting here like, okay, well, rules I was given for life are, if you're going to be dumb, just be smart about it. Okay, the waves are coming in this direction, and you jump off the side of the pier that is not getting smashed into the pier. Like don't piss into the wind. Don't jump into the side of the pier that's
getting wave smashed
into the pier.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're going to be dumb, be smart about it. Those are my, father's only words to me going to college. If you're going to be dumb, be smart about it. Same concept. Like, I can jump off a pier, no problem. It is technically illegal. I learned after the fact. We went there. I was super excited. And no, it's polar plunge at the pier. So the Floridians were just gathering at the pier as a point of reference. And they had sold shirts for some cause. I'm sure it was a medical cause of some variety or other, but they were selling their shirts, and then they thought they were being just ridiculous of going into the Gulf in December, and they were so silly with their polar plunge.
How ridiculous.
I remember hearing about that.
On all accounts.
Nick and I had been hyping
Crazy.
that up all week. We were very excited for this polar plunge. I had to leave to get back to Wisconsin, I think a little bit earlier than the event happened because we were driving, and Nick was flying. So nice. But I remember hearing Nick tell us the story and just being so bummed because you look at this pier out in the distance and, oh, if you jump from that pier, how cool would that be?
Brent, was it like Bay Jammer Pier?
Yeah, taller probably. It was like one of the ocean piers.
Yeah.
Which obviously I think about now would probably hurt if you jumped off of it, but
Thing is, I've jumped off of higher than that.
into the water.
And then even Megan's point was, oh, well, the waves, what if you time it poorly?
Yeah, I wasn't
Don't
too worried about
time
that.
it poorly. You literally just pick the top of a wave and jump into it, and it just carries you along.
I expected
Make sure your
whoever-
legs are bent a little bit.
I was
No, the
expecting
basics.
whoever was running
I
it would be
prefer the belly
professional.
Yeah, the belly flop. Then you know for sure you're not going that deep or you're going to break a leg or something.
Whoever's
Exactly.
leading the thing would be professional and obviously know when to tell people to jump. You know, if they were doing it right. But to hear that was just, let's go swim in the ocean for like a duck. And like, polar plunge? Isn't a polar plunge where you cut the ice open in a lake and you go in?
It is.
You know, you need to go
For us-
under the ice.
For us,
Yeah.
it is in the Midwest, yeah. But at any rate, I only brought up this story because that was the last like cliff jumping opportunity that I've had since college, really. And I would say I would do. I really don't have anything against it. I've always wanted to go skydiving. Now, for whatever reason, and I know it's not how it works, but just my brain mentally, I want to be under 250 if I'm going skydiving.
There is a weight limit.
Heavy right now.
Dylan and I
I am
went
too heavy
skydiving.
right now in my mind, and even if I did get like a bigger parachute or whatever it would take.
Yeah, say for skydiving, it's a combined weight of you and your instructor. So like you would have to get like the itty bitty chick that's the instructor to go with you. So it's just the combined weight of the two of you. Dylan and I went skydiving once.
I'm trying to think of what the weight limit was.
I don't remember what it was.
100 pounds.
It
What's
was a
the
combined thing. I don't remember. They recommended a person under 200, but there was also like a combined, as long as your partner like or your instructor was a certain weight, you were fine.
Yeah, and I was like at 200 at the time, and they're like, "Oh, that's fine." Like, it wasn't. a
Yeah,
big
so
deal.
I'd actually have to lose a pretty significant amount of weight, which I want to do anyway, long term. But it's on my to-do list. It's something I'd like to do. I don't really have a fear of making that jump, and yeah, I've always been like that whole taking the jump and committing has never really bothered me. Like I don't if I know I'm jumping off this cliff, if I've made that decision, I'm making that decision. And I know that if I were to ever hesitate, it would be so much worse.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I mean,
that's the big thing.
all those YouTube
Have you seen
videos
the
of
YouTube
people-
videos of people panicking and then tumbling? That would be the worst.
Well,
Yeah.
so
Or you
you
miss
say
your
that
jump
you
spot.
don't panic, but like when they open up that door in the side of the airplane and you're looking out at nothing, like just open world, I freaked out. Like, I don't know.
I guess for me personally, I think I was one of the first. I was right before
you
you,
were the
right?
first one to go.
Oh yeah, I was the first one to go. So your very first time skydiving, they strap you onto somebody that knows what they're doing. They give you a
I
little
hope so.
instructional thing where it's like, hold your arms like this until I tell you, blah, whatever. And so you go up with somebody. They have like benches. They have this airplane that's just completely gutted out, and then they have these benches that you can get or at least for ours, you can get 2 rows of people on there. 2 benches total, facing like forward, backwards in the airplane. So everybody just kind of piles onto those, and then the more experienced skydivers that are individuals just pile into the back of the plane. Like they don't sit on the benches. Like those are for the tandem people. And then they just took off, circled all the way up. And I will say, like when they opened that door, like that was pretty crazy. Like just looking down, but like I guess in my mind, even jumping onto the plane, or I guess even when we showed up, I'm like I'm jumping. Like there's no way I'm not jumping. So
The same. Like I knew I was gonna go, but I was just like, there's definitely a wave of fear that when you jumped out, I was like, oh shit, now it's my turn, and I got really nervous.
I guess because I was first, I didn't see anybody jump before me, so I could see how that might actually add a little something to it, where it's like,
Yeah.
well, they're gone. Like
But
those
I'm a
people-
lot more comfortable with skydiving than I am bungee jumping. Like I don't think I'll ever go bungee jumping just because I have seen so many videos. Like I don't trust rubber bands. I just don't. I don't like rubber bands.
I don't know if I'd enjoy it. Like the whole like.
Well, then you hang
That's
upside
kinda my
down for
thing.
like a couple minutes. Like
It sounds like the very first bounce, assuming you don't get some crazy whiplash shit, would be amazing, and then I'd be over it. Like,
Well,
probably
that's
just
the
gangbang
point.
For how long?
It's the fall that's the part that's real interesting. Same with the skydiving. It's like that those nerves that you were feeling up there, Dylan. Like that's, I would have to imagine, part of the best part of it. Because
well,
when you
the
take that
best.
step out, you have that fear of the unknown. That's something you can't get very often in daily life, man. And that's why on the zip line, my favorite part, stepping off the zip line, that split second where you're just like, oh, I hope it catches me. Like bungee jumping, that first fall down would be phenomenal, and then once you know it catches you and you just kind of go boom, 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 you're like,
yeah,
eh.
it just gets. I mean, it gets progressively less fun as you know. I'm sure your second bounce is probably okay, but yeah, after that, it starts just getting less and less fun. I will say,
skydiving,
okay, get me
the
up.
best part was definitely the fall. So like, and it was like you say, like I say, fall as if I mean obviously you're falling, but like in like relation to me, like you don't get that feeling of falling like you normally do
No.
when you jump off something high up. When you're skydiving, you don't get that feeling.
The only
that-
time I felt that is when he deployed the parachute.
Yeah,
It's the only time
which
I got a
was scary.
stomach feeling.
That was the scariest part.
Yeah, for sure.
When they deploy the parachute.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's because like instantly your harness. So like I've been climbing before, and it's like yeah, you hike that harness. Like the first couple times going climbing, they hike the harness super tight, and you're like this is uncomfortable, but I trust you. And you go and you get caught a couple times, then you kind of like know how tight you need it to be comfortable climbing. Whereas with skydiving, like they reach this thing tight, and I'm like, I mean I've put on a climbing harness before. I understand what tight is, but this is really tight.
That
And
was
then
tight.
The moment the parachute goes off, you're like, oh fuck, it just got 3 or 4 times tighter. Like,
Yeah.
it was, yeah, it's,
And you wouldn't want it any looser.
yeah. And you're like, well, right after, once it catches you, like, I had to tell my guy, because, like, I don't know, my leg straps were literally my legs were going numb from the leg straps. And I was like,
Yeah, I'm sure.
Can we do anything about this? And so the guy was able to, like, reach down. There's, like, a couple straps attaching you to him or your person, which makes sense. But he was able to, like, loosen 2 specific ones that kind of, like, made it a lot more enjoyable for me to hang there. Because, like, yeah, like, 9/10 of the time coming down is you just parachuting. Like, the free fall is only, like, a good, I don't know, what would you say, Dylan? Like, 30
That
seconds?
was good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was about 30 seconds, which is actually a good amount of time.
Oh, for sure. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, like, this is amazing. Like, they're probably going to stop it soon. And it's like, no, they haven't stopped it. Okay. Like, you can, like, kind of think about more things as you go down. It's not, you had a lot more
It's
time
not
falling.
Oh my God, I'm falling and parachute.
Exactly. Like,
was-
you're actually, like, you get to enjoy it. You're literally just, like, in the moment.
There was a lot
for,
more
like,
time
half a
falling
minute.
than I expected.
Yeah.
And because you're going so
that's-
fast with the adrenaline, it seems a lot slower. Like, you feel like you're processing a lot more things.
Something I'd definitely like to do at some point in life. I enjoy that. Now, I would I'm not in disagreement on the rubber band aspect of bungee jumping. I don't want to put myself in unnecessary peril. And then you have to, like, start asking yourself, well, when's a good time to, maybe go die? Like, so I don't
What?
I don't have to ask myself those. Well, right. If you're planning and you have reserves about skydiving or reserves about bungee jumping, you're like, oh, well, I better make sure I have a life insurance policy before I go bungee jumping. Like,
Dude, they
Like
make you
what?
sign so much stuff.
you're sitting there and you're making a decision about when to do those. And I've unfortunately backseated skydiving to, at some point, I'd like to do it, but I have no idea when that's going to be. That may be like a retirement gift for myself, is like, go jump out of a plane, and then everyone I've pissed off in my career can make sure I've got a lead balloon for a parachute. So we can figure that one out. But
I will say,
No,
I think that's how
it's
that
not
works. I don't think that's up to code. Lead
Yes,
balloons.
thank you.
I wouldn't wait that long because your body's going to take that impact and the harness a lot more hard than your body can right now. Does that make sense?
like
I agree.
the
but
harness
I think
hurt.
I saw like the world record for the oldest person to go skydiving was like.
You cut off completely there, Nick. I can't hear you.
I thought the world record for the oldest person to go skydiving was like 90 something.
Yeah, my grandma
Probably.
went whitewater rafting at 86 or something like
Oh,
that.
dang.
Nice.
Way to
That's
go.
pretty good.
Had she been before, or was that literally her first
No,
time?
that was her first. Like she just wanted to go before she died. So like in her 80s, she was like, I want to go whitewater rafting. So my family, they're just like, all right, and then like
We'll get it going for you.
Yeah.
That's
On
awesome.
the one more note on the skydiving on my mother's brothers, my cousins on my mother's side, obviously, are
Your
very
brother's
familiar with
cousin's
flying, I
second
believe.
roommate.
They are just my straight cousins, but it's a distant relationship because of the age gap between my mother and her brother. At any rate, my cousins on that side are both involved with flying. I believe may have been pilots. One of them was a skydiver for a number of years, one of the instructors who would make jumps, several jumps a day. So that's kind of in my blood with respect to flying and skydiving, but just haven't made it a priority. Looking forward to the opportunity to do it sometime in the future. Before I continue with other fun potential things to do on this mystery honeymoon, was there other things you guys wanted to jump in with?
I think we got time for like one more bigger topic before it'll be Game of Thrones time.
Yeah, I like the honeymoon conversation. I remember my honeymoon in Costa Rica, we went paragliding, something like, we'd never do this normally, but it's the honeymoon, we gotta do it. And really enjoyed it. It was, I imagine, sort of like the falling aspect of the parachute, the skydiving, without the initial fall and having to be jerked around, and got to see the whole area from a completely different view. And that was really cool. Paragliding is another really kind of a fun way. And the nice thing about that was we could do that together. So we just were able to experience that at the same time.
Yeah,
if I
really.
may, is
Sorry,
that like
one really quick note is that Brent, you reminded me, Nick. A lot of times they actually have like dual people ziplining, so you can both go down on the same zip line. So you're likely fine depending on how big the function area is.
Yeah,
Brent,
but
sorry,
then
Dylan.
she's response to that. Sorry, Dylan. Then she's gonna want to go ziplining with me, and I'm gonna be like, "Let's go!" And she's gonna sit there and be like, "No, no, no, no!" and then scream like for the first 30 seconds, and maybe then compose
you don't have to worry about that because she's attached to the line, and no matter how
So
much
are
you scream,
you.
it's still going down.
If you go, she
Let's
goes.
go. We're going together. Either way.
Brent, is paragliding, is that where you basically have a parachute on the ground and you guys like run down a hill until the parachute like fills up, and then
So
you
the
just
way
kinda
they
take off?
this was on a beach. So
Is
the
it one
way
of
they
the
had
boat
it was
things?
they strapped us on and had a
Oh.
boat, like a jet ski, pull us or something like that to get the
Let's go
speed
high.
up. And it went really high. It was pretty impressive. The best part was we had
A jet ski was able to pull you?
Oh no, it wasn't a jet ski. I think they had a boat, but we got a
It's
jet ski.
usually like
I
a
was
back.
gonna say,
back.
dang, that's like
Yeah.
nothing.
No. It wasn't the jet ski. It was the boat pulled us out. The jet ski got us back. I knew there's a jet ski.
Have you ever seen videos on YouTube of the lines breaking on that and like the people flying away and the big parachutes and like hitting like hotels and stuff?
Oh no.
No,
Yeah.
I don't watch those kind of things.
That'll petrify you.
Yeah,
That'd be
I'm glad I
terrible.
didn't see that before. Actually, the operation was pretty well run. I was impressed. I think the scariest thing was giving our phone over to the guide so they could take pictures with it and just being like, "Hey, take my phone.
Please
like,
don't
our
drop
only
this in the
connection."
water.
Or like, don't steal it. Like, whatever you want.
It's our only
like-
connection back to the United States of America.
But they got
Hmm.
really cool pictures of it, and I'm really glad we did it. And
I've
I'm
done
glad I
that a
didn't watch
couple
that video.
times, and it seems to me that every time I do it, it seems a little sketchy.
But I think that's part of the
That's part of the fun, Dylan.
gotta be slightly sketchy. I don't know how
I
they.
feel like that's all of those kind of events in foreign countries, especially like Mexico, Costa Rica, like
Jamaica.
yeah, it's just any event like that. Like there's a little bit higher risk of dying here than if I were to do this in America. But if I was in America, they'd make me sign a bunch of shit. So I don't know. There's a payoff there.
Or have you ever seen them come flying in the jet skis like into the beach and like launch up onto the beach, like all the way up, like 100 feet, where they just like come in like super
parking
fast
it here.
and they just like all the way up on the beach? That's so cool, and that's got to be bad for their jet skis.
Oh yeah.
They don't care at all.
I would say for my honeymoon, the coolest like excursion thing we did was like a catamaran tour. So, I mean, I got sold it, but I thought it was a pretty good price. I think it was like $60 total for both of us for the entire day. You got a free lunch and drinks on board. So I was like, yeah, right. It was in Mexico. It's like Cancun. Like, whatever. Like, we had nothing else to do the next day. We were in like the shopping area, and this one guy was selling it. That was the sketchy part. It was like this one guy was selling it in like this like rickety cart, and he's like, "Oh, and you do so much down today, and then you pay the rest tomorrow." I'm like, dude, if we show up at this address and there's nobody there, like this guy just fucked us out of $30. It's like, damn. So yeah, he was right next to the place that like the hotel buses dropped us off on. Like there was a mini market there that was all under like one owner. Like it was all like indoor and air conditioned, so there's a little bit of money behind it, right? And he was like affiliated with that place, so it was like slightly less sketchy than literally like the tent cities of vendors in Mexico. But we went on this catamaran tour, and I was under the impression that we were going to be sailing, and I had the wrong impression. It was so sad. At one point, I was like, "Are we going to put the sail up?" And he's like, "Yeah, we'll put the sail up on the way back." And in my head, I'm like, "Oh, they need to get us there to like make sure we're on time for lunch. Take our time and sail back." Got it. But nope. Turns out they just motored us across the water to the lunch place. On the way there, we stopped. We snorkeled. That was super awesome, except they gave us these stupid like life preserver belt things. So like I got some decent footage with my GoPro, but I had to put effort into getting down 30 feet. Like I'm a pretty good swimmer, so I had to put a lot of effort into getting down there because I had the damn belt on. But we did snorkeling, ate, and on the way back they're like, "Oh, time to put on the sail." They put the sail. They literally just stretched out the main sail and locked it horizontally. So like on a ship, you see like the two sails, one in the front, one in the back. The back one's called the mainsail. They just fully deployed it and locked it horizontal. Like it was a sunshade. It didn't do anything for.
So they still motored.
Yeah, they just motored all the way back, and we put the sail up. I was like, this sucks.
How was lunch?
The lunch was awesome. Like everything else was awesome. I was just highly disappointed on the sailing capabilities of that catamaran.
Yeah,
I'm sure the capabilities were there. It's probably the
yeah, right. It's just
they
had a business, right?
Went to Cozumel for a wedding of my cousin, and that kind of an excursion was easily the best part of the trip, and we saved it for like the second to last day, and it was something very similar where we got the family that was there on the boat. We got to go to 2 or 3 snorkeling places. There was a lunch place we stopped off at, got that. And then the other thing about the lunch place, which was really unique, are those inflatable like playgrounds, essentially slides, climbing walls.
Oh yeah, I've
the
seen
whole
those.
9 yards.
Like they have at country fairs and stuff.
Right. They had an entire field worth of like huge inflatable things. Got to do some of that before and after our lunch, and it was an absolute blast. The snorkeling was fantastic. Drinks
Felt like
on
a
the
kid
boat
again.
Was super cool. And then coming back home with the sunset in the distance, it was the best day by far. It may have helped that I was double fisting for most of it, but it was easily the best day
vacation.
of that whole vacation. I at the risk of my family and friends who might listen judging me, I don't think I was sober for more than 15 minutes the entire time I was in Mexico.
We need to do a drinking episode.
It
We gotta
sounds
do
like
a
you
dr-
did Mexico right there.
right?
Yeah, it was pretty epic. Only the one issue I had, and actually it was only one. The time I didn't remember snorkeling was a little scary for some of my family, but I'm a great swimmer too. So they're just like, Nick, you want to go snorkeling again? And I looked at him like,
Again.
and my aunt about lost her mind. Like, what do you mean? You went yesterday? I'm like, really? What did I
Whoa.
see?
Did I GoPro it?
And yeah, she was, yeah, I was on my own, and she was a little terrified. And yeah, I think even my cousins kind of looked at me like, you seriously don't remember going snorkeling? You were out there for like your own. I'm like, cool.
Oh, dang. But at some point in time in the future here, we'll have to do a drinking episode and we can talk about, a bunch of drinking
that's my
stories.
worst one probably. But the point being, the only problem I had in Mexico was we did a family picture and we dressed up a little bit for that. And I stood with my family where the photographer put us, and I realized there was an itching feeling on my leg. Well, my cousin looks down before I did because I was so juiced up. I didn't care. And my cousin looks at me and says, Nick, you're covered in ants. And I was standing on an ant colony, and they got about halfway up my shin, and I was in sandals, and that's why my cousin saw it. And we got it off as fast as we could.
Just brush them off?
But nothing. Well, that is interesting. Let's see if it swells up. And it did a little bit, but nothing to be scary. It wasn't like a horror scene or anything. It was just, yep, you were bitten a bunch by some ants. Well, it didn't start to itch until 2 days after I got back to the U.S. I think that's when I sobered up, and it itched so bad.
Oh.
I didn't feel like I was still in Mexico or Cozumel for another 2 days, I think. And I never noticed it once.
Well, that's probably
that was the
best.
state. That was the state I was in, which I have no regrets about. But I digress.
Okay.
I had ants one time.
Oh, Brent, we're running out of
Ant
time here.
story.
We had two
We'll be
things to get to.
fine. Nothing happened during that last episode of Game of Thrones anyway, so nothing to talk about.
All right. Well, you're delaying, so I'm going to start it.
Ant story later. Go ahead.
No, do your ant story. It'll be a long time since we hit the ant topic again.
Yeah, maybe. Well, okay, so just real quick. One summer while I was in grad school, the water for my apartment place I was staying at went out. And what happened were all these ants, there must have been right next to the pipes or whatever. There was just a colony of black ants, and the big ones. And they just infested, because they just came up through the pipes and took over the house. And just waking up in the middle of the night to an ant biting you in the back is just like, oh. That's my ant story. Ant bites suck. I feel for you, Nick. That must have been rough. All right, go ahead.
It's time for Game of Thrones. If you have not fully caught up to Season 8, Episode 3 of Game of Thrones, you might want to turn away now. We will be having Avengers Endgame right after this discussion. So if you want that but don't want Game of Thrones, we'll throw a timestamp in the description. That way you guys know what time to skip to in the podcast so you don't get some Game of Thrones spoilers that you don't want. Let's go. Dylan, let's have you start this one off.
So I'm reading this article by GameSpot. It's Game of Thrones Long Night Review, Season 8, Episode 3, pulled one terrible twist. Now, I'm trying to think, I didn't really, when I was watching the episode, I didn't really think of anything in there that was just like a twist. It was all kind of like what I expected. Obviously, we knew that the battle would start this episode, but there wasn't really anything that I was just like, whoa, didn't see that coming. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of interested to read this and see where they go with that.
I would say I was surprised, like, I'm going to butcher her name, I apologize. Melisandre or whatever, the
Red Woman?
Lord of the Lightweight. Yeah, I was surprised that she came back.
So,
I mean, it was very convenient timing that right before the battle, she's traveled all the way across the ocean and made it, but it works. It works. But that was a surprise to me. I didn't expect her to be there.
yeah, I think there was a lot of talk about that because a lot of the people that are super hardcore into Game of Thrones know that like all the prophecy stuff she's made in the past, and it's like one of the ones was something to the effect of like I'll be there when the winter comes, or like basically I'll die in Winterfell over there. So like there's people already predicting that she was going to be there for that battle. But yeah, her entrance was definitely like when I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yep, they did do that. But her entrance was definitely unexpected. My biggest complaint is besides the darkness of this episode, and I know the producers were doing a lot of backlash on, oh, it needs to be dark, blah blah blah. We need contrast. Like we could not see anything that was going on. Like the Dothraki scene, that one made sense a little bit to not really see, but everything else
was cool. That was cool.
Pretty bad. And I know Nick wants to talk about the battle strategies, but some strategies are very questionable in the episode with the whole sending in the Dothraki on their own initially. Although the flaming of the swords, like she flames the swords, which is like, okay, cool stuff's about to happen. And then they all go and die.
Were they? Well, first off, that was probably my favorite scene of the whole episode was Dothraki. And were the Dothraki screamers, were they supposed to charge into battle? I feel like they weren't. I feel like they were supposed to be defensive, and then after the Red Woman lit their swords on fire, it motivated them, and they took off.
That's a strategy.
If I may,
Jorah,
I can answer that. Sorry, Brent, did you want to?
Oh no, go ahead.
I guess Jorah was with them.
Sir Jorah was with them and commanding their unit because he knows how to speak their language. The battle plan is in reference to comments from prior seasons. I believe Robert Baratheon was the first one to say to Cersei Lannister, only a fool would face the Dothraki in open battle. And the thought here was the Dothraki are very fearsome fighters, especially when mounted and attacking. Send them in about a first line or two, and let that, because they know it's a losing fight, at least at first. They know what's coming, but they're thinking, okay, the Dothraki, send them in, let them butcher the first line or two. After they've taken some casualties,
we'll
they
know
fall
where we're
back. And then they can potentially, after that, you would say, if they can rally and then come back as a late charge to at any weak points, serve as utility there. So was it great to charge in? No, but was the strategy sound based on what they had shared with in the world of Westeros? Yes, because everyone recognized that in open battle, the Dothraki are basically unstoppable. And it was interesting, and maybe a bit of a sin within the Westerosi universe, to have Dothraki who survived be seen running back like terrified. Now, for the sake of the show, like, okay, that makes sense, but like their whole thing is they just go in and kill everybody, and like they have no regard for anything.
Well, maybe they intentionally had a couple come back for that whole effect.
Well,
they're not supposed to see that, but you do see that in a couple of them.
Like it's terrifying that even the Dothraki are running away.
Right, and yes, that was the scene itself with the Dothraki's flames going out. I totally agree. That makes perfect sense into the darkness. Cool. But I will take a lot of jabs at the strategy. What they were trying to put together, they accomplished. Was it the best version of what it could have been? I will say no. As a Jon and Ghost super fan, I was super disappointed that Ghost charged in and we never saw him again. Now he was seen in the background.
He died how he lived off screen.
No, he didn't.
I know he didn't die, but I saw that saying the night of, and I thought it was funny.
Actually, I think they misused Ghost this episode. When they were having the battle with the dragon, Jon could have had Ghost there with him, and those two could have tried to like take on the dragon. I think that would have been really compelling, not to have, you have a direwolf that's like supposed to protect. You have a direwolf that's supposed to protect you, but
Ghost used to be a main character. He was like almost a tier 2 character at one point. And now he's not even there. They're way underusing him. They should be using him as a character.
So if I may, moving past Ghost, and I love talking about Ghost, but I'll move past for the sake of getting through everything in a remotely timely manner. The next thing I'd like to poke at, as far as the issues I had, they accomplished their goal. It's a good episode. I will not put it as a great episode. Now, part of that is I watched Endgame. and that was amazing in my opinion. And like it set the bar so high that this unfortunately fell short. But the reasons it fell short, as Kyle alluded to, everything was so dark. And I think for the Dothraki scene, they're running away from Winterfell. There are no flames. That makes a lot of sense. But then there were other scenes later on where you literally are staring out into the darkness, which is great. That's what a soldier would be like, and that's what the directors were going for. But I'm laughing my rear end off because it's like, oh yeah, biggest budget for the largest cinematic production of a battle in the history of anything.
Yeah, I remember somebody on Reddit was like a picturesque shot from tonight's episode. It was literally just a black square.
And you look off into the darkness. It's like, oh yeah, that's the army of the undead. Never-ending waves of dead corpses animated to come take on Winterfell. Well, where are they? Oh, they're there.
They're there.
Take my word for
it. You never see the scale of it. You never see
that's the thing too. The amount of people on screen was convenient for the plot at all times. Not realistic.
That's my next dig. Not enough important people died. A lot of characters did die.
A lot of plot armor.
But so much plot armor. You're only the third episode of 6, and no one overly compelling that didn't make sense died.
Well, and they should have died.
The only semi-tier one. The only semi-tier one was Theon.
Yeah.
He's not even tier 1.
Mormont. He died.
He was for a number of seasons.
I would put Mormont as tier 2.
I would say that's more. Well, yeah, but his arc was complete. He had redeemed himself. He had cured himself of grayscale, and he died fighting for his queen. Like that all makes perfect sense. I mean, it's a good arc closing, but there wasn't the big hit, the red wedding type scene. Like it just wasn't that well done. And the last dig before I let you guys dive into some more details and what your thoughts are is constantly throughout the episode, and this was consistent. They would show a main character, Brienne, Jaime, whoever it may be.
The dogpiling.
Dogpile, they would get swarmed, and they show one or two of them getting saved. I think Samwell Tarly got saved like 6 times or something, which why was he not in the crypts? But whatever, I digress. But they kept showing, they would be in a horrible situation, and miraculously they would survive, and then they would have like a minute to breathe, and then as they pan away from that person, like they show 8 people collapsing on Brienne. Like, okay, well, I guess Brienne just died there, and she doesn't. But every time they panned away to go to a new story, they just made it look so much more dire. Like,
did they die?
Look at the scenes.
No. Did they die?
They overdid it.
No.
Well, right. They overdid it every single time, where every time right before you leave a character,
you think they're about to die.
Even Jon Snow, when he's chasing after the Night King raises all the dead, and he's sitting there. And I think that was another meme I saw online, Kyle, was where he's chasing after the Night King to try and go fight him. The Night King says, haha, I'm just going to raise all the dead and you can deal with them. He's literally surrounded in the scene.
Right.
And then magically, the next time you see him, he's managed to fight his way single-handedly through what was easily 50 zombies, to then have all of them be on one side of him, to then... Oh,
Nick,
wait, they are
you have obviously never
sides.
played TMNT, the video game, because you can just spin as Donatello with your staff, and you just kill everything around you for a little bit.
Evidently, but it was so consistent with every single character. You would pan away, and you're like, well, they're dead.
Yeah, well, and even when it got to the Jon Snow part, you're like, okay, how's he getting out of this? Like, you don't expect him to actually die. He's not at risk to you. He's like, oh,
right.
How's he going to get out of it this time?
It was overdone in that sense. Like I felt the peril. I was there with the characters, but they made it. And this is the world of magic and dragons and direwolves and all this bullshit. And to make it that unreal, where it's like, okay, I can accept some stupid, crazy nonsense and some magic, but I'm sorry, I just watched 8 dudes all collapse on one person, and you're just gonna say, oh, well, they got away, obviously. Like, what? No.
That all being said, I did highly enjoy this episode. I thought it was fun to watch. Like, stuff actually happened. There's been a lot of seasons of Game of Thrones where there's chunks of time where it's nothing, but stuff happened. I did like the whole Arya arc through the episode. I think there was a lot of talk online about they're supposed to be the promised prince. So it's like, is Arya the promised prince now? Is the Night King actually dead? Because I thought Jon Snow was supposed to be the promised prince. So it's like,
If I may, I get the feeling that the writers of the show don't really care about that really too much. Is the feeling I get.
but like it's supposed to actually follow what George R. R. Martin has planned. So like theoretically, unless he decides to change it, whatever the ending of the show is very close to what Martin's currently planning for the end of the books. So they have to get to that eventually.
I've got two things. The first one is, how did you guys feel about the captain of the Unsullied, like closing the door and leaving his entire army outside and then running inside himself? I was just like, I feel like I don't know. I felt like that was not very noble of him.
I think that's
to
another
leave the
version
full
of plot
army outside.
armor. Every other time we have seen Grey Worm lead his army, he's always the front guy at all times. Like,
And then everyone
that
else
would have
died.
been a
If I
perfect.
may-
That would have been a
if I
perfect
may-
moment for him there to die. Like, I will make sure everybody
I
gets
agree.
inside the castle.
Agree. And if I may, that's another major point. In the first waves of the enemy, when Tormund is
That
looking to his
looks
left,
Awesome.
there are
That looks so
literally
cool.
waves. Like these monsters are not trying to go kill anything individually. They are moving like a wave,
And they do not feel pain.
crawling
Right.
crawling and climbing over one another and just enveloping everything, which if you see the preview for the next episode, they show all kinds of people are alive other than the heroes, which you never saw. So presumably half of Daenerys's Unsullied and army that apparently are still
Survived
alive,
out there
fortune,
somehow.
were just buried in this wave and getting, bit and clawed at, but never died. But at any rate, like you have all those main characters, Jaime, Brienne, Grey Worm, all those main characters were in the goddamn front. And were getting rolled by this wave, and magically they kept backing up and everyone else just stepped up to die while the heroes are backing up. Like, what?
Yeah, I will say that is
It's so poorly done.
when they started that, and I saw that, I thought that was one of my favorite scenes in the whole episode, where you see like the waves of these zombies coming
That was
over
crazy.
the Unsullied. It's like, oh shit, like, and then you see like the main character looks back forward. It's like, how many main characters are we about to lose? Like, I was like, how many? Like, there's got to be a good portion that are about to just be gone. Like, who can actually be gone out of this?
I have to scoot. I'll be back for the end game discussion.
Okay. But yeah, it was like, how many are going to be gone? There's got to be a good portion of them gone. Like, how many are they going to have left? And then they all survive. It was just
Well, that's
like,
why that's why I'm reserving my feelings about this episode until next. There's a lot of things about that I'm just like, why did this happen? Or why are these characters still alive? Or why is it that the way the Night King died, if he's actually dead, did that happen? And I want to see where they go next. Like, what is next episode? What's the aftermath of this? To see, is there something more to this episode that they're keeping these people alive for a reason? Or was it just because we just don't want to kill these characters that we've grown to love and we pay these actors too much, or that kind of thing?
I don't know.
Another thing I have is last week you guys totally called the Night King, whatever he's called, being able to resurrect the dead down in the crypts. I
called that. Nick was against
that. I was really impressed by that. But the thing that I could see Nick being against that is because it doesn't make sense. Because the Night King is able to, I thought he was able to resurrect only people that his armies, like underneath him, have killed.
I don't think so, because in Castle Black they burned all bodies. That's the only example I can think.
Okay.
Is what, like, in Castle Black, I guess I know there's a couple bodies that came in that they were bit, and like after him they just burned everything. But I thought they were like burning everybody that was dying, even if it wasn't by one of the evil people. I guess I don't recall.
No,
yeah, I just thought I remember from the beginning, like earlier seasons, that's how they described it, as anyone that they killed, they were able to resurrect into their own army. But
my thought was it was whoever, like the Starks buried their dead with an iron sword or something to prevent them from rising again, which obviously must not have been the case. You're right, though, it doesn't quite line up that they would be out of the crypts. Plus, they're in these giant, strong wooden things, and they're dead. Like, how strong are they?
Yeah, right. These
Do they
like,
get, these
they should be
superpowers,
dust
or-
at this point in time. Like some of those guys are some of those crypts are hundreds and hundreds of years old. They should literally be dust, but they're just able to
It
punch through
definitely,
cement.
Definitely built up the relationship between Sansa and Tyrion. I thought that was kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
I could get behind that.
I liked that. That was a good moment. I actually thought they were gonna do like a double suicide or something with a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Yeah, I was
Not just
wondering-
like teleport to where all the other people are. I thought there was gonna be something more after they were like,
They're
All right,
like
we have
about
this
to go
here.
charge. Like we'll give it hell, and then the next scene they're just like cuddling in with everybody else.
yeah, did they kill people? What did they do down
I
there?
don't
Right?
think so. I think they
I feel
moved
like-
from one position to another.
Like Tyrion's not that good as a fighter, but I feel like he's good enough to take care of a couple zombies. Like,
Or they could have just stayed there. Like, what was the point of that? I thought it would be something a little bit more.
yeah,
They
or
didn't
like
do
see
much with
zombies
that.
starting to come up the sides, like creeping at to them. Like, yeah, that was weak. I agree.
But the moment between the two was probably one of the top moments of the entire episode.
Right? What was Sansa's
For
line?
sure.
Like, you were the best of them. Something like that.
Yeah, she said that before. Like, it was nice. It was touching. Hopefully, that builds some trust between the two of them.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's
it is.
another. Obviously, there was another part where they really put through. Or how am I trying to say this? There was another part where they really showed the relationship between the Hound and Arya, and how like
That's what snapped him out of this flame thing.
yeah, he was just like she needs help, and like that's when he was just like, oh, I need to go help her.
I gotta keep working for this, even though we're supposed to lose.
The Arya like indoor scene, I thought was a little weird. Like
It was cool,
In the
but not
it was
library.
cool in the sense that they kind of show her like assassiny. Like there's like some kind of paradigms behind. She looks into death. Like she's dancing with death. Like it was kind of like there's some cool like paradigm thing with the whole assassin scenario with those guys. But I don't know, especially when like Beric Dondarrion came in and had to like save her. I thought he would go out a little better. Like he could have gone out in that same exact sequence, but he like just throws the sword and then just gets stabbed a bunch of times. Like I'd much rather see him like fighting off people and like you go.
You did see that he was,
But he didn't have a sword. He instantly got rid of his sword.
which is his coolest part.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna like light himself up.
Fire sword.
Yeah, light himself
He
up
will
or
light
something
himself
crazy.
on fire. That'd been cool. Like burn himself and just
Yeah,
hold the door.
like hold a bunch of people in a hallway or something.
They spent too much of that budget on Ghost, showing Ghost a couple times.
Evidently, that
The
wolf's
thing
expensive.
I didn't like about that scene, like I like the scene, but I didn't get this till the end. How it sets up that she moves quieter than the sound of dripping blood. But based off she moved, it looked like she wasn't moving as quiet. They
Not
didn't
quite as
sell
quiet
that she
as
was this
dripping blood.
mass. It looked like she was just kind of sneaking back and forth. But like, was she that quiet? It didn't sell me that she was a master assassin with some of her moves.
Actually, with
It
your
looked sort
that's
of-
a good point. You'd think as a master assassin, she'd feel much more comfortable in her moves, like or confident. I guess would be the better word. Knowing that what she's about to do is going to work out for her.
Yeah, like getting through and that like it was cool the drop of blood. Like the internet told me this after that it was she's moving quieter than a drop of blood, but watching her move, it was like there's no way she's moving quieter than a drop of blood. It doesn't look like that. The way
Well, they
she's
showed
running.
it when she was underneath the table and she was bleeding, and then the zombie or the undead whatever like got
Looked.
down to like look underneath there and she was gone. Like
Yes, that was a
kinda
cool
cool.
moment. That was
That
like,
around the door
yeah.
scene where she pops through the doorway and she has to stab the female zombie,
zombie
like
in the
right
head.
through the neck.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a good little moment there. That was pretty cool.
I think the only real besides like anytime the dragons were flying, I just couldn't watch. I was kind of disappointed that there weren't more cool, hey, this guy is dead and he got resurrected. Now I have to fight him moments. Like, oh man,
Yeah,
Jorah has to go kill
they
Lyanna
showed
Mormont.
they showed all the other
like-
guys getting risen, like the quote unquote main characters getting risen, but they never showed them fighting another main character. That
Like,
was that was a missed
I want-
opportunity for sure.
I want Ed to
Especially with
attack
Little
Sam.
Bear. Little Bear was badass.
Yeah, I want to see
Little
like
bear.
The little
The-
girl that stabs the troll in the
Leora.
eye.
Oh
Lyanna.
yeah.
Lyanna
She got
Mormont.
crushed
Well, I
by
want
the-
to see like
yeah.
Ed try and kill Sam. Like, I think that would have been cool, or just like some kind of moment that was really compelling. Like, hey, this person died in the battle, and now I have to fight them. Maybe something more like go along that effect. Get a little bit more drama in there.
Yeah,
And
that was
they
definitely a
had
missed
waste
opportunity.
What's the
I was
name of
happy
the guy
that they
from the
wrapped up
north
that.
that was in love with Brienne of Tarth? What was his name?
Oh,
Redheaded.
yeah, the red beard guy.
Did he
Tormund?
die?
Tormund.
Tormund.
Yeah.
No.
No,
He's still
he's
Is he
good.
still alive?
Seemingly he lived. Other thoughts, sorry, I'm back. With respect to Arya and her in being in the library or whatever that was, where she was avoiding all the zombies essentially. That was a great scene, and I actually thought, well, I had a problem with it. Number one, okay, you have an entire war going on, steel clashing, people dying, screaming, yelling outside. Inside can apparently hear your blood drip on the floor. That was a bit silly to me, but I love the scene because it harkened to like a Jurassic Park where the girl is hiding from the raptors.
Yeah, the velociraptors in the kitchen thing.
Exactly. And I thought it was similar to that as she works her way around, dodging everything, and she has a great skill set. And another character I was really disappointed with was the Hound. Like, his character arc was just jacked up that whole episode. Like, he's reason for living and surviving, and he is doing good, doing right by so many things, and he just gets scared by death, and then he's jarred out of it in supporting Arya because that's his reason for not dying, like a loyal dog essentially is his
There's not enough fire there for him to be as scared
thing.
as he was.
Like, even that he now
I think
fights
it was a
for the
dragon.
fire god. Like, what the hell? And he just he curls up in a ball and inexplicably they didn't have to do that, is my point. They took a character whose arc should not have done that, and that wasn't like an unexpected twist like, oh my god, I can't believe it. It's like, no, that's just dumb. Like, that doesn't flow with everything. That just didn't sit well with me.
Okay.
Well,
I think
how are we? Wait, one last with the Hound. How are we supposed to get excited for Clanging Bull now? Like, if he can't stand up against some whites, how is he going to stand up against his?
Well, that's his
white
own. That's
brother?
his peak to redeem himself.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully.
He's gonna panic during the fight with fire, and then somehow win by rolling out of it or some crap and throw the mountain into a fire or something like that.
Yeah, I guess
Well,
we'll
for
see
fan
that.
service, but that's just too much.
I guess we'll see that in the end game. Game of Thrones.
Before we move on to the next movie, what do you guys have any predictions for this next episode? Like, how long do you think Cersei's gonna wait to attack the North, or like, what do you guys see coming up?
I would say from the previews, I think the North is coming down to them. I don't know. That's what I got. It'll be interesting. I guess I don't really care as much. I don't know. Like, I have a hard time caring as much about the Cersei battle.
Thank you.
the White
Cersei
Walker
was
battle.
not meant to be the big bad here. She really wasn't. I mean, she is a horrible bad, certainly, to be the big bad. I don't know if you guys discussed this while I was in hiatus, but
We did not.
literally the whole season opens beyond the wall in the North. And they left it completely unanswered. And basically all they're doing is HBO is selling their prequel series. Whatever prequel series to this that they're going to come out with a year and a half from now is going to be based around the creation, I'm sure, and the relationship of the Night King, Melisandre, and other characters who are magically aged. To not answer those questions. Why was the Night King doing what he was doing? How do his generals who did nothing that entire episode come into play? What's he trying to accomplish? Just he's just trying to end the world and I'm the world's memory. Okay, Bran, so are you going to go to the Citadel now? Or are you going to go into some sort of, exile
Protective
to go
custody.
watch the world? So many unanswered questions, and I know I'm not going to get answers, and they're going to fake like they're going to answer them or tease them with the prequel series, which is really irritating. And I already stated, but I'll state it again. The idea that all these Unsullied and all these characters we saw in the preview for next week are suddenly back alive. Everyone was dead in this episode besides a handful of people in the crypt and the heroes. Dead.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think there's an army to march south. Which
There
is
would
How
kind
do
of
you make
like
a golden company?
well,
One of
that's the
the
thing
best
is like
mercenary armies
obviously
in the
they
world.
have the Golden Company, and I think what like as you're saying that Cersei doesn't really matter, but I mean they ended the whole battle between the Night King in episode 3 out of how many episodes? Like I feel like
So if
they
I may,
ended
is
this
winter
too
over?
fast.
Is winter over? Because technically the Night King is winter. Is the winter. So with him dead, is winter over? I know we're time warping since last season essentially, but how do you get an army that should all be dead anyway south to do anything? Like the Glovers have like 60 some people who didn't come to support the Starks. I hope they get roasted in their castle or whatever.
Or
But,
they
I mean,
were
there's
White
just-
Walkerified.
No, they weren't on the way. That was the Umbers.
Oh.
Were wiped out. The Glovers are in a different location, and theoretically were not hit. I mean, they could be just a loose end, but they didn't come to the aid of Winterfell when they were called, despite all of their pledges and this and that and the other thing. So, okay, that's like 60 dudes you can pick up, and maybe you can find 1,000 men who are still alive magically. But just to claim that we time warp and everyone's back, and
I mean, dragons
the number
help a
of
bit.
bodies, the number of bodies. There were bodies piled enough to climb the walls throughout, like surrounding all of Winterfell. It would take you 3 years to dispose of that many bodies.
One thing that was brought up is like, some of them turned to ice, some of them turned to dust. Like the death of whites and even just the walkers was changing even throughout the episode of how they died.
Wildly inconsistent. Arya in the library
Do they turn to
stabbed
dust,
the one,
or do they
and she
bleed out?
zombie gooed all over her outfit when she was in the library. And yeah, some of them get stabbed with the dragon glass and they make the screeching noise and they collapse. Wildly inconsistent.
Anyhow,
Is that the difference between Dragon Glass and
Valyrian Steel?
Valyrian Steel.
No, because like Jamie and
dragon glass.
Brienne were piling up because they were killing people with the Valyrian steel.
I also forgot about oh shoot, why can't I think about it? They had the largest navy in the world or whatever.
The Greyjoys.
Oh. All right, I forgot about the Greyjoys because obviously like their uncle has the navy or whatever, but I feel like the Greyjoys are going to play a part in this next battle.
Could be. That could be the reinforcement troops that they need in the north to do anything.
So. I think that's where they're going to come from
Oh,
because there's obviously no troops, but
We're out of time. We got to switch out. Which Dylan has not seen
yep, I am out.
the next Avengers yet, so want to make sure we don't spoil anything for him.
And when you find out Thanos is a woman, it's going to be a little awkward.
All right, well, have a good night. I'll let you guys chat this up, and I'll catch you guys next episode.
See you, Dylan. All right. Oh god, it's real loud. I apologize. Wow. Knock that one down a bit.
I mean, yes, the movie was epic, but my goodness, that was quite the introduction. Kyle, what format do you want to take on this? Do you want to talk about the movie in general?
Yeah, there'll be spoilers again. So again, if you have not seen Avengers Endgame, you might want to turn away. We'll spoil everything. We're just talking about it.
Can I walk through the rough plot line and then we can kind of dissect parts we hated or parts we really liked or parts that made
give us
feel like
give
this
us
was
a
awesome?
background.
Yeah, go an overall plot line before we dive into anything. How about that?
Overall plot line brought to you by Nick. Movie starts with a cold opening. Very nice, as I was there opening night in a packed theater, and we were not ready for a cold opening. We went from previews to oh, this is it, which was pretty cool. It starts out with Hawkeye, and Hawkeye was not in the last movie. He stepped away from the Avengers and was raising a family. And we find Hawkeye there with his family on a beautiful summer day, and they're having a picnic, and he's teaching his daughter how to shoot. And as he is sitting there teaching her how to shoot, she of course shoots, and hits a bullseye because it's Hawkeye's daughter. And what do you expect?
Sorry, Nick. I think we're gonna have to speed up the rate of run through.
Yes, I know this is.
You're hitting a lot of details.
Cool opening. Yeah,
That's the biggest important part of the movie. He's setting up the entire rest of the movie here.
Complete start over of yep, this is where you left off. At any rate, he turns around to see his family as they're preparing dinner. Turns around, his daughter's gone, and he's like, well, what the hell? And he's calling for her, and he turns around, and the rest of his family, who were all standing there, are gone. And that kind of sets us all like, oh yeah, that just happened. Fast forward, half of everyone is gone. The Avengers are struggling to figure life out. And a lot of people are having trouble dealing. Captain America is leading like a survivors support group, finding a way to move on.
Oh, that was not yet. No. They went on their attempt first. Because it was right after. It was like 2 days after the event.
Yeah, they went and killed Thanos.
They didn't. Okay, they did that after.
Nope, not after 5 years.
They killed Thanos, and then it was 5 years. Yeah. Kyle's right on this one.
I
tell it right.
I think you skipped it.
Apparently I'm out of order. I'm gonna watch it again tomorrow because it was that good. So
you gotta let us know if we were wrong. I think Kyle's right on this one. They killed Thanos right after the snap
because Thor was still fit and whatnot.
It was like 3 minutes, because that's what spiraled Thor 5 years later.
Okay, you might be right, but Captain Marvel arrives per the end scene and asks, "Where's Fury?" It's not, he's not there. She rescues Tony Stark, who is leaving that lovely preview message we all saw for Pepper Potts. Tony Stark comes back. Tony Stark's in rough shape, and he's just out of it for the foreseeable future. And then, the Avengers all get together and they locate Thanos via the energy signature. They're like, okay, yep, energy signature that got rid of half the people was here. We saw another one just like it on this planet, and Nebula reveals, he always talked about if he accomplishes his goal, he'll go to the garden. Assemble the Avengers who are there, less Tony Stark, and they come crashing in and pin Thanos to the ground. It's not a fight. It's not a competition. And then Thanos reveals he has destroyed the stones. That's important because the Avengers were going to use the stones to undo the snap.
Yeah, and Thanos was already super weak because he had every single time he snaps, it takes.
His body was decaying, and he couldn't put up a fight. He didn't want to put up a fight. He thought he had won. He said that he was inevitable, meaning they couldn't mess with time using the time stone or something else to undo with the power of those stones, because he used the power of those to destroy those. So he's talking. He's on his power, bad guy speech, and what I'm going to guess is maybe 1/3 or half of the way through it. Shocking moment. Thor just cuts his head off.
That was pretty
awesome.
awesome.
It coming, and Thanos is headless, and that's that. And then
It's
after
done.
they pan forward 5 years, and that's where you have the support group. Hanson, Black Widow, is serving as Nick Fury, and they're going through the motions. They're protecting the planet. They're trying to do good things, but you can tell they're haunted every single day by what's happening. There are other things that are occurring there, and the big thing is Ant-Man. The Ant-Man was left in the limbo of the, what's it called? The something verse?
Quantum realm.
Yep.
Perfect. He was in the quantum realm, and I've seen memes for this. The hero of Endgame was a rat. Because this is in like a compound station where this van that was left out was put, or impounded, whatever, and a rat was walking through the van and hit the right button to call Ant-Man back out of the quantum realm. And what for Ant-Man was a couple minutes was 5 years for everybody.
It was like 5 hours. Yeah.
They realized time works differently in the quantum realm. So he comes back to Avengers headquarters, meets up with Captain America and Black Widow, and is like, hey, so quantum realm, time travel, kind of a thing. And that opens up the possibility for, okay, how can we fix this? And they make all kinds of jokes about different movies and time travel, and you can't break certain laws, which is pretty comical. But then they assemble the Avengers. They get back together, the team. Hawkeye, after the cold open, is playing Ronin, essentially a character in the comics. He's out just killing mobsters and gangsters, ruthlessly slaughtering them all. And they pull him back. They pull in the Hulk, who is now Dr. Hulk. And that's a comic version of Bruce Banner and the Hulk.
That was pretty
mixed.
good.
Like they've come into one. It's Hulk looking scientific and dapper.
Like, essentially, with the snap, half of Hulk died and half of Banner died, so they had to merge in order to become, still alive.
Dr. Hulk. So it's pretty cool, and they pull in all the Avengers, and you have the one Avenger who's most important here is Tony Stark. And the thing was, Pepper Potts was not snapped. Tony was not snapped. And they had a daughter in these last 5 years. So you actually find him living in a cabin by a lake, doing quite well for himself. He understands the loss, but he's doing well. And they've pulled in all the Avengers, and they basically say, Tony, we need your help. We think there's a chance we can undo everything.
We think we know time travel.
And he's a little torn because he has a daughter in the last couple of years. So undoing everything isn't exactly an option. He has to figure out a way to bring everyone back without changing.
The priorities have changed.
The last 3 years. So it's an interesting situation. He figures it out very quickly and doesn't agree to help everyone right away, but then comes forward and helps them. There's a hilarious scene where they're trying to manage time travel or figure it out with Banner, or Dr. Hulk rather, in control, and that's some comic relief there. But then Tony comes in, they've got it all figured out, they've got a plan. They need to gather the stones from different points in time, and this whole process is an ode to the 22 movies essentially that led up to this final end of this chapter of the Marvel universe. And they are going to split up to go grab the stones out of a certain point in time. And the thought is they will then bring them to their world, use them, and then return them like a half a second after they had taken them in the first place, to allow for the stones to exist in their original universe to maintain that process. And you come to realize this was Doctor Strange's plan as they're getting the time stone from his former sensei, who's dead in the current timeline, but of course is alive then. And she recognizes,
I can't give you the stone. It's like, no. Like, Doctor Strange told me to bring it to get it from you. It's like, oh, right. Doctor Strange said it. He's the best of us. I misjudged you.
He's the best of us, even though
I don't even know him yet.
Right.
I heard he's cool.
Plan, and they start to and there's a lot of great comedy moments that I want to talk about, but I'll do that after our summary. They go through the history of their movies, and they proceed to get the stones or steal the stones from those moments in time. So at some point,
real quick, they hit up Thor, the original Thor movie. No, Thor 2.
Oh, it was the bad one. It was Dark World, the one that was a flop.
They hit up Thor 2, the original Avengers, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 are the three movies they hit.
And in that process of getting those stones, Nebula unknowingly compromises the mission because she goes back, and as Thanos is working with his two daughters to start this journey, the Nebula in that time, for lack of a better description, starts getting visions from the other Nebula because her brain's all whacked out because Thanos has torn her apart and rebuilt her to make her better and all this other.
And they can be wireless of some sort. There's transmitting memories between each other somehow.
So Thanos sees in that timeline that he was successful and that the Avengers are trying to undo it by, going through time. So they abduct the I'm jumping through a lot, but it gets so detailed and so very long.
And they jump back and forth between the different missions too.
A lot of great moments, but they hijack Nebula and they put in the Nebula who's still bad from the prior timeline, and she then brings Thanos to timeline, the original timeline of the movie where everyone has been snapped away, to ensure that everything stays snapped. And there's a great line towards the very end where he says, "I am inevitable," or he repeats himself from the beginning of the movie. But he then is pulled into that. They've got all the stones, and they are attempting to before Thanos comes into the picture. Excuse me. They succeed. They get all the stones, and they've got the Infinity Gauntlet, and Hulk does the snap, and to bring everybody back. And right after that occurs, Thanos, who was brought there by Nebula from the prior timeline, brings his whole ship, his armada from that point in time, the one that was used to invade Earth and more, to attack. And he destroys Avengers headquarters. All the heroes are still alive, but scrambling to figure things out. The snap has been made, and Captain America is then standing against Thanos and his entire army. What ends up happening is how the wizards, or Doctor Strange and his folks, transport. They bring in everybody. Everyone who was snapped away, who's a fighter, every hero. They all assemble the armies of Wakanda, Asgard, and everything. They all come filing in, and there's this great scene where they all charge into battle against all.
You don't have any more
of Thanos. This great battle scene that ensues that has a lot of great moments we'll touch on a little bit, and ultimately they are able to get the Infinity Gauntlet away from Thanos, as that's what he was after. That was after he exploded the headquarters. That was the big race, is to win the battle, but also get the Infinity Gauntlet, as that controls everything. And Doctor Strange looks at Tony Stark and says, there was only one out of the how many million options that turned into a win. And in that and Tony asked him, how do we do this? And he says, if I tell you, it won't work. And then he looks at him at this key moment at the end, and he's holding up one finger and is saying, "This is the one." And Tony understands that he needs to sacrifice himself, and he pulls a fast one on Thanos to put stones off of the gauntlet and put them onto his Iron Man hand.
I saw a nice GIF online of the Robin Hood and Little John Disney animated film where the one guy's kissing the king's rings and sucking all the jewels out. And it was basically comparing Iron Man's motion there to that. It was good.
And Tony now has all the stones, but as you know, Tony is only a man.
He's only
the stones
human
immediately start to
all.
bother him. He makes the snap to eliminate Thanos, his armies, his armadas, everything. And in that process, the stones have their same effect that they had on Thanos, only on Tony, who's only a human. And what happens over a period of a couple minutes is Tony then dies from the use of the stones, sacrificing himself, and Thanos and his armies are defeated, and everyone else is brought back except for
Nebula,
Black
who was
Widow.
attempted.
Black Widow.
Oh yeah, Black Widow.
Who was sacrificed for the Soul Stone. There was no undoing that. But they're also just with an awkward thing with Guardians of the Galaxy, main character's girlfriend, the Green Girl. The Soul Stone, so she's gone. However, the one from the previous timeline came with, so now she's there, but it's not the one who fell for the main guy from that, and I'm blanking on Star-Lord.
Yeah.
Peter Quill.
No, Star-Lord.
Peter Quill.
He would call himself Star-Lord.
I know he would.
But at any rate, that is
well, it's kind of like the setup for the Asgardians of the galaxy.
Is the end of the movie essentially the snap, and then the memorial for all the lost, mainly Tony Stark and Black Widow, and who else died? Am I missing one right now?
I think that's it.
No, it was those two.
Those are the only two named
Captain
characters.
America. The end.
Oh,
Yeah.
He's alive. Captain America, as we know.
No, but that's the other kind of twist at the end.
Yeah, Captain America, as we know him, died, quote unquote, and it's not because he was beaten or anything like that. At the very end, per the plan, they have to return the Infinity Stones to their proper timelines to ensure that all of those stay in line, essentially, is the theory. And as part of doing that, Captain America goes back in time, and when he should have warped back into the current timeline, he never came back. He stayed in the past, and he ended up marrying and living with the one lady from his storyline. An
Yeah.
interesting
was-
point.
I liked that. I thought that was a really cool thing.
I
Now
thought
we
it
have
was
Black
good.
Captain America.
Captain America kissed his sister. Or not his sister, his daughter. In the Captain America series, he found out the woman he loved was married and had kids. Either he robbed that man of his family and kids that he would have had, or he was that man when he was being watched by what's-her-face's daughter. I think at some point he kisses her. He kissed his own daughter.
Oh, time travel, man.
Time travel gets goofy. At any rate, he's an old man sitting on the bench when he doesn't warp back when he's supposed to. He's an old man sitting on the bench in the background, and then he hands the Captain America shield, which was broken in the battle. In that timeline, he hands the shield to who's the black guy with the fancy
Falcon
jetpack
guy or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Falcon.
He's the new black Captain America, which is really cool and a big moment as well.
That'd be a cool movie. I felt like some of those moments.
Rather long plot, but it's a 3-hour movie. Go in and jump in with your favorite thoughts and moments.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a 3-hour movie.
Yep.
I don't know about you guys.
That's
It just
definitely
went
the best
so
point.
fast. So fun. It was so fun the whole time through.
Yeah, totally agree. Like, for a 3-hour movie, there was nothing in there where you're like, they could take this out. This is fluff. Like, get rid of this. Like, everything was solid. Like, fully engaged the entire way through.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. The comedy I liked because it didn't overstep the plot. You weren't like, oh, this is a comedy. They're here to make jokes. It was more of these are just some really funny, good moments to add in to keep the audience kind of engaged.
And the nice thing is,
I thought it was really tasteful.
Marvel's kind of already like set that tone too, as far as how they're going to, have that kind of level of comedy within their films. So it's you just kind of get more of that. You expect it, so it doesn't feel off-putting. I will say, coming out of the movie, it was a lot easier to say the couple little things I disliked rather than the stuff I liked, because everything else was awesome.
Yeah, I could see that. I loved Fat Thor.
Yeah,
to say, but
that was gold.
I thought that he's now every man's superhero. He's the superhero of the everyman.
It's still Thor comedy, but it's slightly different Thor comedy. It's
darker,
cool. Yeah,
but it's hilarious.
I thought one thing that the very first thing I noticed coming out of the movie that I was like slightly bothered me was when Ant-Man and the Wasp flew into their car to like get it booted up so they could try to use that as a time machine. They showed them jumping into the car and messing around. The very next scene, they had a giant Ant-Man in the background, like throwing something. It's like, wait, he's in the car right now. So like, that's the level of how good this movie was. Like, that's the first thing I thought of what don't I like about this movie. I totally saw that accident where they had Ant-Man in the truck and then throwing a thing in the background.
The one thing that got me about the movie was that all those superheroes that they built up over the decade or so they've been going, and the ones that got snapped were the ones that were like the fan favorites, the big ones. And then I feel like a lot of the secondary Avengers sort of, they didn't get the character screen time, or, hey, I'm back to life now. Like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah, it's off that point.
Off
that point, Falcon being the new Captain America, I totally agree he's the guy for it. I just didn't feel, maybe it's because the last emotional connection you had to him was in the second Captain America, but I just didn't have a recent emotional connection to him where I'm like, yeah, he deserves it. He's definitely the one that does deserve it, but I don't have that emotional like success feeling like, yes, in me.
Yeah, I felt that more like for Bucky. Like Bucky should have been.
Well, you can't have Russia represent the U.S.
Mother Russia.
If I may, the note I'd like to share on the other characters who weren't the main Avengers, that was them setting up for the future.
Yeah.
If you highly feature Black Panther, whose movie was the premier event for the year, essentially, and culturally, it was a huge deal. If you feature them, there's nothing to grow to. The reason they featured who they featured is because it was their last hurrah, and it's the end of their story arc. Tony Stark is done. Captain America as we knew him, done. Black Widow, done. It's okay. Those were great characters. We learned a lot about them. Well, yeah. Now it's like, well, wait. What about Spider-Man?
Yeah,
well, yeah.
perfect
you have that other
example.
movie coming
He
out
only
with,
had two. He really only had two like film like scenes in the movie. When he first showed up and said, "Hi, Mr. Stark," and when Stark was dying and he said his goodbye. Those are his only two scenes in the entire movie.
Yeah.
But there's more for him. I do agree with that. I like that. And
Well,
you're
yeah,
gonna see how they can move forward.
Disney's not dumb enough to end this money train. Like it may not, if they get 1/3 of the revenue and success out of continuing these stories, and they'll get more than that. There's no scenario where they end with this. Like they already have a Spider-Man coming out. I'm sure they have the next 12 movies planned, if not more. And there's going to be a Black Panther 3, Black Panther 4. I mean, at the end of the day, the money is still what matters. But that's a separate issue. The storytelling behind that is fantastic. It was a great movie. I love Fat Thor. The moment we've already spoiled everything, and we're going to continue. But the moment when Captain America uses Thor's hammer, which he brings back.
That was awesome.
Oh, that was cool.
Cheers!
I knew it
in the theater. Cheers in the theater. From women, actually. There were a lot of young women in the theater that I was in, apparently, because these girls or prepubescent men were screaming. And I didn't even get to hear what happened in those scenes because they kept screaming the entire time that he was fighting. And it was so cool. The energy in the theater, everyone was so excited. The battle scenes are great. It's not super dark, and people get hurt, but none of the main folks die outside of the epic finish. But the way it was done, I got chills as Captain America was standing there against the forces of Thanos and evil, bearing down on him. And then out of nowhere, I think the key line there is "on your left." The Falcon guy says to his radio piece, and a circle opens up.
Yeah.
And people start coming through these circles, for lack of a better term, these portals. They start coming through, and you realize this isn't such a one-sided battle after all. And it's chills. I absolutely got chills throughout the entire thing. It's so well done. You feature each hero a little bit, and you see the very best of them, and that's Captain America wielding Thor's hammer. At one point, they actually end up with the opposite. Thor has his hammer, and Captain America has the axe, and they have like this pause moment, like, no, you take this one.
You get the little one.
This one's bigger.
So many really cool moments. And then the other one, this is not the battle, but this is when Captain America travels back in time to the first Avengers movie.
I can do this all day.
He meets himself, and himself thinks
that they can do it all Loki. Day.
And he starts to fight himself, and even Captain America from the current time is facing himself, and they're fighting. He gets knocked down, and per Kyle, I can do this all day, and he just looks at him like, oh shit, that's right, I say that. God damn it!
I'm so enthusiastic right now.
Or that is America's ass.
Right that was
the
good too.
Ass line was fantastic as well. That's
there was more swearing than I was expecting. Like there were some younger kids now. I'm like, I was like, but
I didn't notice it really.
For the Avengers, I thought they did more than what they're used to, and I was okay with it. I thought that it worked out a lot of the time, especially considering that.
I wonder if because of the length, they're allowed to put more in per time, and they can just condense. Like if you have a so many hour movie, you get one swear per period of time, and if they just hit over that segment and they put all the swears in, a close proximity, it just seems like there's more swearing
than there actually was. I could see that being the case. I love the elevator scene. I thought that was one of the times I like.
The Hydra one?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was so great.
One complaint I'll have is Captain Marvel way underused. Like what the heck? Like there's so many times where I'm like, why is she not here? Like, what is she doing? Like, I know she's trying to do this to all the other planets in the galaxy or whatever, but it's like, she's Captain Marvel. She's from America or from the Earth. Why is she not here? and like she comes in, OP as shit, takes down the whole ship, like crisscrossing through it, flies down, and then they start tossing the hammer back and forth. It's like, why does she not have this hammer yet? Just have her do it. Like, she is already OP. Like, just give it to her.
The headbutt from Thanos where she doesn't flinch.
Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah, that was cool. I wish I would have seen that movie before I watched it. I'll have to go back and watch it.
And that's just it. Like, honestly, I think they paid off. You know, if they didn't get all 22, they paid off at least, you know, some 15, some 75% or more of those movies with those kinds of references. Because, yeah, if you didn't see the Captain America movies, you have no idea what Hail Hydra means.
Or the elevator scene.
It's okay.
If you didn't watch Thor
Hail
Dark
Hydra.
World with the interactions with Thor's mother, you don't know the importance of that. Like, they brought back Natalie Portman and all these one-off actors and actresses who made appearances in certain films. They had them all. Like, they didn't shortchange. They didn't dance around anything. They adjusted the plots accordingly. Like,
I'm surprised they got everybody. They literally, I did not see any actor or actresses changed.
The
like, it was
only one
all
that
the
was-
originals.
They were missing the guy from, but I think he had died already. From that original Iron Man, like the Shield guy, Colston. But like I think he was already dead, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, he was dead in the timeline. He died.
I was like,
Yeah.
why don't we see Colston at some? Oh, that'd been cool.
no,
but-
he's dead.
Okay,
But
they
great, a lot of fun
you can think of
appearances.
one character they missed in all
The
of.
only
What
thing
about
that really
Quicksilver?
bummed me- Yeah, no, those don't count. The thing that bummed me about the end, and it's really nitpicky, and it's
The
supposed
fact
to be
that
feel
it made
good,
me
wrap it up.
bawl.
Well, nobody died, really. It's like you're in
What?
this huge battle against this-
Iron Man died.
Besides Iron Man and
The
Black Widow.
OG of OGs died.
Yes,
Like,
but like
I was not
Started with
crying.
him.
I was not crying, but there was an active effort to not do anything more than tear up slightly.
I definitely teared up twice during
I
the
agree.
multiple times during that movie for sure. But
I'm
you're
a
just thinking,
man,
like it's this
but
giant.
that shit,
battle.
that hurts. That gets you right in the feels.
You're not telling me like Pepper
the
doesn't
reason-
die
Hold on,
or
the reason with it and not in Game of Thrones is that it's Marvel. Marvel has set the tone. Will survive. Now, the fact that they broke from that is more of a contract issue than anything else. But it had to happen eventually. Whereas
yeah,
in Game of Thrones
you expect it.
is as popular as it is because George R.R. Martin will establish a character, let you fall in love with him or her, and take them away all in. And you have this whole arc. And my favorite one for reference is always Robb Stark, where you know Robb Stark, you're on board with his whole plan. He's the father avenging his son, leading his family and young brothers. The young wolf never lost a battle. Has a wife who's going to have a kid. He's going to name his kid after his dead father, who he's avenging. You have all of it, and it all just goes to hell.
He's
and it
just at the
rips-
pinnacle of success, and it's
Fair enough,
gone.
but that's why Game of Thrones is as good as it is.
Or at least
it's
was.
just it has right. It was when it's still Martin's material. It's amazing. But you can't compare that to a Marvel where you know at the end of Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 and Iron Man 15, Iron Man's still going to be there.
Yeah, that's a good point. They can't.
Yes,
just
that's my only rebuttal. I get what you're saying, but remember who's producing this.
and what it's about. Yeah, no, I other than that, I mean, I thought that was really cool. Even having Doctor Strange has to hold back all the water, so he can't be fighting Thanos and that kind of, like I thought it was well done for having
It's
to feature as many characters as they had to feature. They did it in a very
well, to be
not
fair, like
realistic
Doctor
or
Strange already knows
understand.
exactly what he needs to do in order for this to succeed. So he's not going to be the variable.
Yeah, that's true.
If he knows that the butterfly effect, if he fights versus just holding this wave of water, he tried however many million trillion combinations. Like, if that's the one where
He
it's
knows.
like, I need to be holding this for X amount of time and then it'll work. That's exactly what you cannot question anything Doctor Strange does the entire movie.
Yeah.
My super nerd's going to come out here for just a half a second and I'll shut up after that. But the part of Doctor Strange's story was the time stone kept the planet safe. And in this time travel, among other things, the time stone of that timeline has still been destroyed, and they have to return it to the correct timeline. Doctor Strange becomes who he is and blah, 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 blah. But that leaves Doctor Strange without the time stone going forward. Now, he's still an incredibly powerful wizard and blah, 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 but his movie, that was his solo movie, time stone was the only defense against the galaxy-eating monster thing.
So I guess they explain the time travel, even in the dialogue, as Dragon Ball Z time travel. And although I have not seen the show for that port, like those episodes that deal with Dragon Ball Z timeline, I have now watched enough YouTubes explaining it that I think I get it. And it's that
Nice.
basically when they're going back in time, think of it as they're just going into a different time universe, right? And they can jump around however they want within that. And then when they turn off the machine, they suck them back out. So and once they get sucked back out, they have not affected anything in their timeline. They're literally like putting them into an alternate timeline, but later, that has to this point followed the exact same path. So I think that's the way they explain it, is that when they go there and come back, that's the natural path. No, but that's the natural path that universe would have had in the first place. You're not actually changing that universe's path. That is what its path is in the infinite timelines.
Okay, but even with no snap, Earth without the time stone to defend against the galaxy-eating enemy monster guy is the plot hole there. Now, there are going to be plot holes in time travel. I get it, but that's my super nerd coming out.
Yeah, that is the one thing that was like, time travel movies always have a certain.
Was done as well as it possibly could be.
That I agree with. When I first saw they were going to time travel, I'm like, it's going to be one of those kind of movies. But the way it pulled together, I
wonder how much money they had to drop in order to drop all those movie names. Like, do they have to pay all those movies just to drop the name of the movies? Because they dropped a lot of big name time travel movies.
Depends on the movie.
I don't know.
Sure.
Or do the other movies count as free advertisement?
How many does Disney own?
Yeah, touche. All right, want to wrap her up there?
I love it.
All right. Well, that was episode 46 of If I May. Hope everybody enjoyed. Bringing a new episode every single Thursday, so be in touch next week to see our next one then. If you'd like to support us, you can all do all the podcast stuff and look at our merch. If you want to get in contact with us, we got a Twitter at Zarbust and an email, zarbust@gmail.com. But otherwise, we will see you next Thursday. Have a great week.